Well, folks, you know you're in for a treat when you hear that tune because it's time for another week of the RecPoker podcast. I'm your host, Jim Reid, Bluffsterini in the home game and at RecPokerJim on Twitter. And I have the best freaking job in the world. I get to hang out here on Monday nights talking poker with my friends. 7:30 Eastern live on YouTube every week. Come and join us for free. Someone's going to win a prize later in the show. Normally it's just one prize, but we're going to give away a few prizes because we've got Tommy Angelo on the show tonight. We're going to talk to him in just a minute. I'm super excited for this interview. But first, I got to tell you, if you don't know what RecPoker is about, we're a worldwide group of fun-loving amateurs who like to hang out, learn, and share our love of poker. We play for fun, but it's more fun when you win. So we study together, we play together, we celebrate together, and it all starts with a free membership at rec.poker, where all it takes to belong is an email address and a smile. All right. I have to thank our sponsors, the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino, because most of what we do here is free. We're a largely volunteer-based organization, so we depend on support from our sponsors and also from our premium members. We've got a few new premium members this month that are taking part in our great training material and study opportunities. Oleg Gomer, Ken Lowry, Sevon Brown, and Brandon Steinhorn. I can't wait for these folks to get elbow deep in some of the training opportunities we have here at RecPoker and join our social elements and just get to know some of these fine poker folks a little better. Now, so thank you to all of them for your $15 a month. And remember, folks, you can get your first month for only $5 by using the code RecPoker at checkout. All right. They let me host the show on Mondays, but I am just one man. It takes a group, a village, a crowd, a crew to make all the magic happen here at RecPoker. We call this group of wizards the Wrecking Crew. And if you want to find out more about me or the rest of the Wrecking Crew, head on over to rec.poker/crew, or you can just listen up because you're going to meet a few of them right here on the air, starting with our own producing co-host, Chris Jones.
I'm Chris Jones. You can find me 5B5 on Twitter or 5x5 in the PokerStars home game.
My name is Eric Jin. I am Binkley on the forums or Rec Binkley on threads.
My name is Joe Coolis. You can find me at JoeCoolPhD, cool with a K, on X or Twitter, or whatever the hell Elon is calling it now. And then Elvita11 in the home game.
And I'm John Somsky, also known as Poker Geek MN everywhere.
And I'm Keith Brandt. That's a Monkey System everywhere.
And I'm Sasha Sutton, and you can find me at Poker for Girls on Twitter.
And I'm Rob Washam, and you can find me as Rabman50 just about everywhere.
Well, as you can see, we've got a full house tonight, and you're about to meet the reason why, the one and only, it's not his first time on the show, but we're grateful and thankful to have him back. It's Tommy freaking Angelo. Tommy, thank you so much for coming back on the RecPoker podcast, my man.
Thanks for having me. Love your show. Good to be here.
You're too kind. Oh, and I see we've got Roger Schutte in the YouTube chat as well. Graphics16. Roger, you are the man. Thanks for all your help. Roger's one of those volunteers that helps with behind the scenes with all we do over here. That's fantastic. Tommy, you are such a delight to talk to every time we get to bend your ear hole over here. We did a little planning in advance. We're going to talk mostly tonight about your work, Waiting for Straighters. It's been out for a while. We've referenced it here before. It's a great work, not only of strategy, but also of mindset. Can you talk to us just a little bit about sort of the process of writing it and what you got out of it? And then I'll open up the group to ask some more questions.
Okay. Well, in a sense, it was written over the course of about 20 years, the content. And I tell those stories in the book that I, in the process of struggling with my own leaks and pre-flop leaks where I would get just a little too spunky too often. I was constantly trying to ratchet that back. I realized in thinking about this interview that one of the concepts went way back was from Doyle's book, when he said something along the lines of, if you're going to make a big move on a pot, have some kind of outs, right? And he was like, a gut shot is plenty, but at least have that so that when you get the free card or whatever. And that was kind of what got me going way back then, seeing the difference between, Jack 7 and Jack 6, that if you can flop a straight with a hand, the potential, the way that plays out is just enormous because you can flop a pair and backdoor a straight and just everything. And so I kept coming upon that line, and I tell the story in the book about early coaching and early online coaching a guy. And every single time I started to do a deep dive into my pre-flop game, asking the question, what's the worst hand I should ever play in this spot? I kept coming up to the straighter line, the difference between 3 gappers and 4 gappers. So that's kind of where it came from. And the process of writing it, I mean, and my process is kind of always the same. It's just a joy when I've got something meaty to talk about, and I just crank out reams of draft and edit it and send some to people like Sasha to get advice, and Andrew and others. So, yeah, I don't have much to say about the actual writing of it, but I can talk about the where it came from.
Yeah, perfect. Well, so I'll just remind our audience, if you're watching along in YouTube, feel free to type any questions you have into the chat. And we're also going to be doing our raffle at the end of the show to help support the fight against food insecurity. So get ready to start typing the word food bank here at the end of the show. And we're also introducing a new segment last week, Stake, Study, or Stack. This is from Eric Jin. And so if you're in the YouTube chat right now, start typing the names of some poker players. We're going to use this for a fun game later with Tommy. I want to see some names of poker players appear in the YouTube chat over the course of the interview. And then if you're here on the panel, a RecPoker Crew member, and you have a question for Tommy, just unmute. And of course, I'll call on you there. So Tommy, I think there's a very intuitive benefit to this waiting for straighters idea. It sort of, it cuts away a lot of the difficult minutia of range selection. It gives you like a very graspable concept. It feels like a very painless poker way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
So I guess there's no surprise there.
Yeah.
Can you sort of talk a little bit about the mix between the strategic element of making more money by being a better player, and that the mix between that and sort of the strategic element of enjoying yourself more, and that quality that you get out of playing poker better?
Are you talking about related to straighters?
Yeah, within that, yeah.
Oh, well, I don't know if this is the point of your question, but what it gives me is great security, because I know I'm never going to do the stupid leaking that I did for the first 20 years of my career. And one of the things that, once we get into the strat element of it, I just want to clarify that one of the misconceptions about waiting for straighters, and I go through this with clients all the time, they're like, oh, Jack 7 suited, I got a straighter, I better play it. It's like, no, the whole idea is to wait for at least a straighter. It doesn't mean play every straighter you ever get. And the other thing that's really important is, and this is why, like if I'm coaching somebody that plays only PLO, half the book is about straighters and PLO, and eventually we'll define those. But if I'm working with a PLO client, I tell them, please read the book all the way from the beginning, even though there's got the Hold'em stuff in the beginning, because one of the key chapters right in the middle is about acting last. And it's like this essay, it's the best essay I've written to express how I feel about acting last and how vital it is. And so where the straighters really, really come in is it can't be removed from the positional consequence. So classic situations are you're defending the big blind, single raise, right? In the old days, if I had like King 4 suited and the buttons were super wide, I would defend there. And there are plenty of people that do, and they make money, and that's fine. But I just changed it to where, okay, I'm going to fold King 8 and I'm going to play King 9. And and by doing that, it just made it, you asked me to merge the strat with the psychology. I believe it was great strategy for me because I like to play tight from the blinds, but it gave me a safety net. I never had to worry about pissing away money with those top and bottom connected hands and other hands like that. And so then the other aspect of the positional aspect of waiting for straighters is on the button. And here it's all the way to the other extreme in that, let's say I'm playing the softest game in the world, the stacks are deep, and 6 players limp. Okay. What's the worst hand I would ever limp along with on the button? Well, the answer is 6 deuce offsuit. Okay, but I will not play 7 deuce offsuit. I will draw that line. So the whole point is, if this situation is as favorable as possible, I'm still going to wait for a straighter.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can feel that, especially for recreational players. I think we take comfort in like having some general rules and things like that to follow, and to not have to actually have like a granular intellectual exercise every time the question is like, what action are we going to take? So I can see that being something that our audience in particular can really work on. There's a question here in the YouTube chat from someone I think you might know, Chip Extractor. Says, doesn't it limit creativity though, Tommy?
No, it limits spewing.
That's right.
I mean, creativity is in your soul, right? There's no way to limit creativity if you're a creative person. It's just going to happen. So no, doesn't limit creativity at all. Then if you want to get creative, then re-raise with the, 3-bet with the Jack 7 suited, but don't do it with Jack 6 suited.
Nice. Yeah, thanks for coming back, Chip Extractor. So it limits like creativity when creativity is a euphemism for spewing, I think is the line that I'm taking out of there. Sort of.
Yeah, I mean, creative is a touchy word with me because, we have to define terms once we get into philosophy, but I believe it's possible to maintain a state of creativity all the time at the table, no matter how mundane your plays seem to be.
Well, that's certainly the way that you've always approached it, and the way that you have talked about it as well. So that doesn't surprise me one bit. So talk a little bit about, you don't see a lot of books that are written about both Hold'em and Omaha, and applying these rules to like a general preflop sorting rule. I think Omaha has been looking for that for a long time. It's a hand that people have a difficult time putting into buckets and that sort of thing. What was that like? Did that present any challenges? And, So tell me a bit about that.
I'd love to tell you about the Omaha section because it involves one of our favorite poker players, Phil Galfond. So 2013, I was taking on a new client I was doing this week-long, like a 5-day program in Vegas, and he was a full-time PLO player. And so we were going to be playing the 2-5-10 rock game at Aria every night, talking about his game and his life during the day and playing poker every night. Now, I played a fair amount of PLO back in the day, but not much since it had become like an official game. But I had a pretty good idea how I wanted to play pre-flop, and my idea was no danglers, like at all. And just a little side story, in Waiting for Straighters, there's a pretty funny section in there about defining just what a dangler is. So anyway, I had this idea of, because when I'm playing with a client, I buy in for a short stack, and I don't want to get involved in a lot of pots. I'm merely there to observe them, but I want to be playing with positive expectation. And so I wrote to Phil, and we had a talk. I said, I got an idea for my pre-flop strategy for this 1 week that I'm going to be playing at Aria. And I told him I'm going to basically play no danglers from any position at all. This means like folding king, queen, jack, 5, double suited on the button, right? I was not going to see the flop without any hands that weren't completely connected. I'm talking about aceless, pairless hands. That's very important. Okay. Aceless, pairless hands. Okay. So I said, what do you think, Phil? He said, I think it's great. Go for it. I was like, beautiful. So I did that for a week. And as it turns out, granted, slow, not much of a sample size, but I did have a really big winning week. And it was so much fun. I went back down about a month later and played nothing but PLO again. Never saw the flop without a straighter. And had another big week. And then, in addition, I have a client/friend named Harry, who's mentioned in the book, who is a PLO master who's played, at that time, had played 5 million hands online. It was so knowledgeable mathematically and intuitively, and he helped write that section of the book. He was totally on board with the straighters at Omaha, at PLO. And so that was a big time of discovery and kind of exciting. And then getting validation from Phil, I was like, okay, I'm going to put this in the book.
Because people do talk about how that is a difficult part, classifying hands and sort of even giving pre-flop advice, because the hands are so much more complicated having 4 cards in them. So I love that you've found that way to simplify that process a little bit.
And the way the strategy works out is the nature of PLO. If the chips are moving, okay, you can afford to basically. I didn't raise before the flop one time in 2 weeks. 2 solid weeks of playing PLO. Never raised before the flop. Enough chips go in often enough before the flop and on the flop. So I'm waiting for Jack 10, 9, 7, and I'm waiting till I crush the flop. And by the time chips start going in on the turn of the river, my EV on average is so far ahead of them that it's too late. You know, it's the nature of PLO. The pots get so big so quick. At least they did in that game. So that's how I could get away without ever raising before the flop and basically playing nothing but nuts poker the whole time. Let's define what a straighter is.
Yeah, please. That's great. Okay. Yeah.
At Hold'em, it's super easy. It's any hand that can flop a straight. That's it. At Omaha, at PLO, it's now we're talking about hands with no ace and no pairs. Those are special categories. So we're talking king XXX or queen XXX. Any hand that has 2 or fewer gaps is a straighter. So if you have 9, 8, 7, 9, 8, 7, 4, that's a straighter. If you have 9, 8, 7, 3, it's not.
Okay. Yep.
And so if you have queen 10, 8, 7, that's a straighter. If you have queen 10, 8, 6, it's not. All right. So there you go. That's the definition.
I like it. That makes a lot of sense. We do have a question in the YouTube chat here. This is your buddy Steve again saying, I totally agree with the sentiment, just playing devil's advocate. So should the goal be to think less at the table, though? I totally understand the boundaries, but how do we improve if we just play by a blueprint? And Tommy, I'm guessing what you're going to say is that we just kind of, some of the decisions we find this new floor for, and then that frees us up to be more creative and more with the rest of the decisions available to us. So say that better, so it sounds better than how I said it.
No, that's right. All of us have certain plays that we don't have to think about anymore. Right? We all have certain plays we don't have to think about more. We all have some that we do think about. So part of the process is moving more and more into the automatic area. Automatic doesn't mean routine, you do the same thing. It just means you know what to do. And what was the first part of that?
Just that he agrees with your sentiment. He's just playing devil's advocate, I think, to tease out the argument on the show.
Well, keep in mind that this is, and we're going to get to this, that the last part of the book is called, there's only 3 parts. Using waiting for straighters to tame tilt, plug leaks, and reduce your fear of self. Okay, so none of those things have strictly to do with strategy. So what this is, to some extent, it's not about what hands to play. It's about what hands to not play. It's about when you're stuck, you're steaming, and you're off your A game, and you've set certain rules for yourself, a certain safety net, that I'm just not going to play the king 4 suited. Not an option, right?
Yep.
So for a lot of players, especially recreational players, this is a simple rule that is going to save them money if they are prone to leaking that way.
No, I like it. You were kind enough, Tommy, to share with us some copies of Waiting for Straighter, so we had a chance to review it. I know Sasha had prepared a couple questions specifically based on those excerpts. Sasha, why don't you jump in here?
Sure. Hi, Tommy. Thanks for coming on. For our listeners and viewers who don't know Tommy, he's been on the scene for decades, and he's has a brilliant, creative, agile mind. And you can find lots of fantastic content on his website. And also he wrote a book, if you haven't heard of it, which I would be surprised, called Elements of Poker, which is truly life-changing, in addition to Waiting for Straighters, which we're talking about today. I reread waiting, I reread Strader's recently and had my mind blown once again. And I think, Tommy, what was exciting for me to discover on the second read, and I love what Harry had said. I can't find the sentence. I was looking at Strader's just a moment ago. There's one line in it when I think Harry is credited as saying something like, looking down and seeing a hand that feels like you want to play, that has some joy. And I couldn't figure out, like sometimes I would look down and my hands made me feel nauseous, and not the obvious nauseous hands, but my friend, I watched a guy win, $34 million in 10 minutes with ace-9 offsuit. But I never play that hand for the most part, right? And lots of those hands, not the extreme ones, like people will say, oh, I want to be unpredictable. I want to be creative. I want to open 8-3 offsuit under the gun +1. So I'm really, really unmappable. That's kind of an easy layup for you to respond to in terms of the creativity question. But it's not. People say that all the time. Like, to your point, people are playing all kinds of suited weird cards on straighter cards all the time. So the question of like the dangler question, what you reminded me, and I was grateful to have been reminded of the dangler question, because that's really when I look at cards that make me feel nauseous, they're danglers. And the line is just so clear. It doesn't even this idea that, just hands that I'm folding, that has allowed my mechanics to get faster and faster and faster and faster. And why wouldn't we want that?
Yeah. Was that a question?
No. No, because I was gonna give you a very easy layup on why I shouldn't play 8-3 offsuit under the gun +1 to be mysterious.
Well, I mean,
you would say, yeah.
You kind of touched on the other objection, so we'll just touch on that. Okay, so even if you play a 30% VPIP under the gun, which is looser than most grinders, people still aren't going to know what you have. I mean, let's say that they know the worst hand you open with is 5-6 suited, okay? And you open. Well, they have no idea what the hell you have. You don't need to go all the way down to 8-3 offsuit in order to keep your range this wide. All you got to do is open the occasional 10-8 suited, right, under the gun. And I mean, I'm not suggesting people do that, but I mean, if what you want to do is create this wider range, you don't need to go to the total trash hands. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Just as one quick follow-up, I mean, if you are working with clients who just, I don't mean this in any kind of pejorative way, but like are super action junkies and just like have super wide ranges, and that's where their joy is, do you feel like you can still guide someone with very wide ranges toward away from hands that are just getting them into trouble? Like, say to you, oh, Tommy, my ranges are too wide for this this is just too much structure. My ranges are just too wide for this set of recommendations.
Well, here's what I do is I've got a guy right now I'm coaching who plays very high stakes, and his VPIP is like 60. Okay. And all I do with somebody like that, once they've said to me, I want to play fewer hands, all I do is shoot for at first, just trying to get them to trim 5 or 10% of their hands from the blinds. That's the very first step of healing. And so we'll look at it. I'll say, so, find his borderline hand. And here's the logic that does click with some people, which is everyone has their lines, their places where they think, okay, that's close. Whatever the situation is, let's say you're in middle position, there's, a raise and a call, and you've got your range of hands in that situation, and you've got some band that's close, borderline, everybody, right? Every situation is borderline hands. All I suggest to anybody ever through the dawn of time is just trim 5% off of everything, right? All you're doing is throwing away the highest fluctuation situations of your life constantly. Even if there's a little bit of profit to be made there, it's not knowable. You're never going to know if you're really 51% advantage or 49 when you play that hand. But even if you could know, all of that fluctuation builds up the agitation and wears us down. And causes us to do other things. So unless you're somebody who never, ever, ever tilts or never, ever suffers from fatigue, I believe that trimming 5% off of your marginal hands on every situation is very likely to increase your score.
So that brings up one of the things that I want to talk to you about tonight, Tony. Tony, that's like the third time I've called you Tony on the show. Tommy, why? I don't know what it is. This is it's funny. You
I have three Tonys in my immediate family. Maybe that's
it's genetic, is what I'm hearing. All right, that makes me feel better. Let's examine, so what is the trade-off? Like, what is the downside? I feel like what you're saying just makes so much sense. We're just going to be removing the worst hands from our range. Right. Those are the hands that are, neutral EV anyway. Mm-hmm. They're the hands where you're going to make a second best hand at showdown, often for kicker problems or for something like that. So I think when people because we a lot of us do coaching here through the RECing Crew membership, mm-hmm. and people come to us and they have a hard time tightening up. And I always try and talk to them. It's just what you're giving up is not that valuable. What you're giving up is going to hurt you as much as it helps you. Is there a downside to overfolding? Are people going to exploit us by opening wider than they would otherwise? And if they do, who cares?
Well, first of all, no. If the objective is to make money, okay, then all you got to do is look at the people who make money and do what they do. It's not that hard. That's how I've learned how to play music and play poker and do everything. So I did a survey one time with Andrew and others, and I wanted to know, for a grinder in Vegas playing live poker, what's the highest possible VPIP you can have? And I asked Zach Resnick, who used to be a fairly large voice in the poker world for a while, and he and I are still friends. And he is the most aggro high VPIP pro I've ever seen, that I know well, that I've played a lot with. He came up with 33%. Andrew said 30%, right? So if you've got a client who has a VPIP of 37%, all you got to do to say to them is, there's no chance that you're optimizing when every pro in the world is under 33.
Right.
So now to the other extreme, if the people are playing loose, the classic teaching from way back to Mason Mouth is the tighter they play, the looser you play, the looser they play, the tighter they play. That was true to some extent at Limit Hold'em. You can't go too far with that, right? It's true to some extent at No Limit Hold'em. But if you're playing in a low stake game with a lot of players playing loose and there's short stacks and people shoving all in, tight is right. I don't need to defend that. That's just a fact.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we just have to convince people but I think ultimately part of the problem is people have to decide, are they there to have fun / torture themselves by playing these marginal hands? Because if so, then by all means continue, right? We're on different paths is the answer.
Well, if somebody's playing a low stake game, there's a lot of limping hands, right? And they've got their 6-3 suited in the hijack, 3 people limp. Of course they're going to limp. That's what recreational players do. That's it, right? They're never going to fold that hand. So trying to actually talk a recreational player who's deeply into the action that hand provides, that they need to fold, is really, really hard. People kind of need to take a professional mindset at some point before they're even able to make those kind of changes.
Yeah. Chip Extractor's back in the chat saying that he would push back a bit and say that overfolding can be detrimental if it's giving up on hands that you could get some value from. I think that's true to a certain extent. But yeah, we're talking about sort of a little further behind that line there. Chris, you unmuted. Do you have something?
Well, I wanted to ask another question that's from the YouTube chat here.
Do it.
Because I think this is a really interesting question. If you're kind of playing in a long-term game, or you're hoping to be invited back. Maybe you're in a private game. The question is, how do you handle the pressure of private games and the idea that you need to loosen up to secure a future invite?
Yeah. Well, it so happens that with the proliferation of online private games, I've coached several players on this very thing. And the guy I just mentioned is exactly that. So this is a very real thing. And so it's the right way to look at it. And what we're talking about is intentionally making suboptimal plays on purpose so you don't get kicked out of the game. That's basically what it comes down. And that is a very, very real thing that many, many players have to do. So it's a matter of how much can you get away with. What I tell them is keep your ranges wide, give the action in position, see if you can get away with folding a little more out of position without raising too many red flags, right? But a lot of that is when I'm actually coaching somebody, I have to know all the details of the home game, of the situation, because there are plenty of ways to keep reminding people that you're not afraid of action, that you'll give action, doing prop bets, doing this kind of thing. But it's definitely true that there are times that players need to play bad on purpose to keep a seat in a super juicy home game. And the details of that just depend on the exact situation.
Mm-hmm. I had another question here, and then we're going to give away a prize at the end, like I mentioned. So if you're here in the YouTube chat, you've got a chance to ask some more questions of our own Tommy Angelo here. Tommy, we're talking a lot about situations where we are defending the blinds. We're taking passive actions. We're calling raises that have opened in front of us. And I think this makes perfect sense in those cases. There's an argument, I think, for when you're the opener, opening with some hands that have a blocker, even if they are danglers. Is that
hold on. The term dangler only applies to PLO. Let's get that out there.
Okay.
Has nothing to do with Hold'em. Okay,
great.
Go ahead.
So and I'll speak only to Hold'em because that's the game that I'm
okay. Yeah, let's stay on that.
So like raising a hand like ace 6 through ace 9 on the button.
Right.
There's an argument for taking that action that would not be a good argument for calling with that hand. Right. in the same way. So is there like a tiers of non-straighters? Like is there room in this opening philosophy in this pre-flop philosophy for hands that aren't technically straighters even in Hold'em?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So, well, I mean, ace 6 suited is not a straighter. Any hand with an ace on the button is a category all on its own. That's a different universe. Even, ace deuce offsuit has huge playability and power in certain situations on the button.
Eric, Jen, are you hearing this? Just Eric and I have this little issue with me opening ace 4 offsuit from the cutoff, and I just want people to understand what Tommy is saying here.
I did say the button. I didn't say the cutoff.
You weren't even the cutoff. You were like low jack or something.
What's that?
He was low jack. He wasn't cut off. So
no. I mean, once you open the ace 4 in the cutoff, and the button was anything but fold, you kind of lost the hand, in my opinion, in a weird way. On the button is a whole different sauce. Yeah.
All right. Cheers. I appreciate that.
Okay. So anyway, but what was the spirit of your original question?
Oh no, just about like, are there gray areas, or are there certain hand qualities that are like better or worse within this kind of black and white straighters, not straighters world?
Oh, well, yeah, ace hands are in their own category, but actually the answer I think is no. There is, I think it is black and white, except for ace hands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In other words, the king 8, I'm always folding it.
Yeah.
It is black and white.
Yep. I like that. Simple rules. Keep it easy for us here, because that's the ground from which we get to spring that solid ground that we get to use to jump from. Joe Coolis, you had a question, I think.
Yeah, I think that we've had discussions here in Rec Poker repeatedly about particularly new players coming into the game and how can they manage all of the decisions, all of the information, all of the different things. Poker is like a fire hose of different opportunities to make errors, right? I mean, you have so much stuff coming in all at once. And I think that the heuristics that, when I read your books, Tommy, the heuristics allowed me to simplify at certain points, not necessarily that it was always GTO, that it made, the optimal play in all situations so that I could extract the most value. It was what I could do at the time because I still had other things to do. And I hope people are hearing that because it's A6 certainly can be played or King 6, right, in the right situation. But the EV of that is so low that you really have to play a long time before you can get it. It's almost not worth it because there are other things you can focus on. And that's what I always took from that heuristical value in that moment. Should I play this? I can't remember. It's not a straighter. Okay, go on and look at something else.
So it's efficient.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just want to follow up too, because I think that you talked about automaticity, which is another term that I use fairly regularly. A different term, I just use fluency, right? It's like those automatic things, and it starts to, the game can speed up for you, or I'm sorry, slow down for you because the decisions are fluent for you. And so you can concentrate on something else and make better decisions that you would miss. So.
Yeah. And that's the growth process in everything, like cooking or whatever, right? Is keep adding on.
Well, we're coming up to getting close to the end of our interview portion here. I'll give folks one more time to enter any questions into the YouTube chat or unmute here on the panel. Sasha, why don't you jump in? We'll give folks a little more time to ask a couple more questions in the chat. I see you unmuted.
Yeah, just very quickly. I mean, I appreciate Tommy's shout out to the tightness of pros in Vegas. And I was so grateful to learn and to see in real time just how tight. And I'm not saying that everyone has different objectives, Jim, as you said, but to play for money, like your ranges, the frequency are just so different. But I wanted to just respond to what you said earlier, Jim, about this question of if we're too tight, we're going to be exploited. I happen to be reading Daniel Negreanu's book from 2008, which I didn't even know existed. And he really unpacks small ball. And I'm like so quiet now pre-flop. I'm playing around with it. And it's just so exciting because I really don't like to front load my hands that much. So I'm getting picked on often on the button. I played with Tommy once some years ago. And, he was getting 3-bet out of the blinds. And then he folded once, he folded twice. And the third time he shipped with like not much of anything. But I get picked on all the time on the button. And I figured out, these guys read in a book, like, the button ranges are like really wide. So they're like 3-betting me out of the blind. And, I'm like sighing and I'm just like, please, you think you're just so clever. I'm sorry, but I do get a little nasty on the inside. And yeah, sometimes there's that. And I figure out how I'm going to deal with. Sometimes maybe I will limp a button. If some of the guys here, they just really like to just strut in their 3-betting behaviors. But the flip side of it is this question of, are we going to be exploited if we're too tight or overfolding or whatever? And the flip side is that I've got super whale, aggro, Moby Dick, beautiful opponents. The minute I pause to bet, they're like, oh no. Okay. The minute they open or they raise and I pause, it's my turn, and they're like, oh no. Right? So you think that tight players don't have power? You're wrong. Tight players can be terrifying because, especially for women and older women, because we never bluff and we always have it. And those groans and those, oh my God, she's coming into the hand. My work is done. Tommy?
Yeah. Well, the tight players that don't bluff, old man coffees, don't do so well. Tight players that bluff a lot do really well. And so, that it goes hand in hand. That to cash in on that image, you got to steal a bunch of pots, and you can't.
We do have one more question in the YouTube chat, and then we're going to get to our stake, study, or stack segment, and we're also introducing a new little segment at the end of the show called "Closing the Action." So we'll get to that in just a moment. This last question is from Steve. I wonder if Tommy can talk to how he handles closing the gap between knowledge and application with his students. The reason I ask is it seems like today's players know more than ever, but still have trouble applying it in game. Is that a gap that you notice, Tommy? And are there techniques or ways that we can try and close that gap?
I only know of one, and this is what when I'm working with a client, early on, I'd like, okay, are you a full timer? No. Do you have a job? Yes. How many hours do you play a week? 8. I'm like, well, I got bad news for you. To get good at poker, you got to play a fucking shit ton, a lot for years. So that's my advice: is how to close the gap is to play more. And I'm serious.
Practice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just getting the reps in, right? I mean, there is no substitute for reps. And so I'll take one little tangent question there. So would you recommend people like playing online just to see more hands more quickly?
Yes.
And then
Absolutely.
is that like a practice?
If someone is not already done the work to be a winning player online, then I've had a lot of clients do this. In fact, which is play low stakes, really low stakes.
Yeah.
Depends on how new they are. But I've had clients who got excited about that. They're like, oh man, I get to play poker at like no risk and practice stuff and learn stuff.
Yeah.
So that's, for some people, that's a great tool.
I used to golf quite a bit. And so with some of my clients, if they're golfers, we use golf as like a language to talk about poker. And I think about, play online like you're at the driving range, and then go play live and take it out on the course. And you don't practice on the course. That's what the driving range is for.
Right.
So get those reps in, get that muscle memory, and then it's time to go perform when the lights are on. So I like that idea. Tommy, you're such a fun guest. Thank you so much for coming back on. It is time for Eric Jin's segment, Stake, Study, or Stack. So Tommy, I've taken down some notes of some names that have been suggested to me. You have the opportunity to stake one of them, to study with one of them, and to stack the other at a poker table. Okay? The 3 names are Phil Galfond, Brad Wilson, and Jason Su. Who are you going to stake? Who are you going to study with? And who are you going to stack?
What does stack mean?
It means you take all their chips and leave them crying and penniless on the side of the table.
I don't get to do that to all 3?
Well, in time. Eric, do you want to jump in here?
No, so the 3, you have to assign one person to each of the 3 categories.
Right. Yeah. So Jason, and who is
Phil?
Jason. Yeah, take it, Eric. Yeah.
Phil
and who?
Brad Wilson.
Okay, Brad. I don't know Brad. I don't know his game at all. But I would want to study with Jason, and I would be studying presence with Jason. He and I have a beautiful relationship, and that's what I would want to do with Jason.
I am not shocked.
Stake? How can you not stake Phil Galfond? I mean, come on. I guess that means I'm going to stack Brad, but I'd rather not.
That's such a Tommy answer. That when I'm talking to Brad later, that's not how I'm going to describe it at all. I'm going to talk about it. Oh, I can't wait to stack that jerk.
Yeah, I'd just rather visit.
All right. Well, here's the last one. So this is our speed round, Tommy. We call this closing the action. And these answers are going to come super fast. And when this is over, I'll thank you for your time and we'll move on. So we don't have a timer yet, but I'm keeping track of how long we have. Ready? Speed round. Okay.
No. What are we doing?
I'm just going to fire a bunch of questions at you, and I want you to answer as quickly as you can.
Okay.
Honestly, they're pretty softballs, but I want some quick, honest responses from you. Okay.
No, I like to revise everything. That's why I'm right. So, but go ahead.
No, what we will do is we'll put your polished answers in the show notes for people later. Once you've had time to reflect, we can review this
later. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. All right. All right. No drum roll, but okay. Favorite poker hand?
Pocket aces.
Nice. What's your biggest poker pet peeve?
Chatty dealers.
Is poker a gamble or a skill game?
Both.
Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
No.
What is your favorite poker venue?
Live cash.
Is Ace King a drawing hand?
It depends.
Ooh, that's allowed. That is allowed. Who is your poker nemesis?
Oh God, I've had so many over the years. Well, currently,
Sure.
I'll just say DD at Oaks.
Okay. DD, I hope you're listening. All right, now go back.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
He'll know. He'll know.
Yeah.
You're a child. It's a family holiday. What is the meal that's on the table?
You said your child?
No, like back when you were a kid. What's your favorite family holiday
we had
meal?
traditional turkey dinner.
Turkey dinner. All right. Yellow light coming up. Slow down or speed up?
Slow down.
Should vacations be lazy or busy?
Both.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Yes.
What player type are you?
Tight aggressive.
Are you pro chop or no chop when it comes to tournament poker?
Tournament poker. Not applicable.
What's your favorite color?
Blue.
All right. And the last one, you've done great so far, Tommy. So this one could be related to poker or not, but it has to be honest. Tommy Angelo, a life in review, looking back on your entire life, what's one thing you would do differently?
I would have married my first love.
Oh, wow. What a great answer. What a great answer. See, I love these. I love this speed round. We get some real good stuff out of Tommy Angelo there just by putting him on the spot. Tommy, thanks for being the inaugural guest for closing the action. I feel like that went really
that's
well.
A great idea.
Freaking pro star over here. I knew this was going to be a fun one. Tommy, if folks want to get in touch with you, what's one thing that our listeners could do that would make your life better in some way? What would you ask them to do? And where can they get a hold of you if they want to reach out and say thanks?
They can go to my website, tommyangelo.com. My email address is there. And here is my email address, tommy@tommyangelo.com. Just send me anything.
All right.
You go to my website, tons of free articles, videos there. Just everything is there. What was the first question?
Oh, just what could people do if you could ask people to like vote on something or subscribe to something or buy something or give something away or, punch someone, what would be the thing that you'd like our audience to do?
I would request that we all try to be kinder to each other.
Great answer. Great answer.
On that particular note, I do note that you're giving away some things today very nicely in terms of our food bank offer, and so which means I'm not going to be able to actually get a dice roll to give some money to the food bank myself. So I know that you and Eric Jin play in the same card room very frequently. It's Oaks, right? Mm-hmm. So I will give $50 to a food bank if you can send me a picture with Eric of you two at sometime in the next year. It doesn't, I'll hold it in there. Just see him. You see him out of our corner, say hi. And if you can stack him, I'll give $100. I'll give $100.
Okay. Do you have contact with Eric?
I do. Eric and I talk all the time.
Then send this to him. and then we'll try to make it happen.
All right. I'll be waiting for the picture.
That's fantastic. Well, folks, start typing the words food bank into the chat. We're going to have our raffle after Tommy leaves us here, and we like to support this fight against food insecurity. Food banks in your area are a great resource for people that need a little help, and it might be people that you're not expecting. It might be some people that surprise you. So just Google food banks near me on your smartphone, and you'll find a place around that can use some time, some money, or some pantry items from your own home. And if you type the words food bank into the chat here, you'll be entered into our raffle to win a prize. That's all you have to do. It's free to show up. It's free to enter, but the prizes are real. Tommy, thank you so much. Does anyone else have anything they want to just jump in here with? I would just say it's always a pleasure talking to you. I'm glad I only called you Tony once. So like we're really trending well, I think, as an organization.
Yeah.
And I already can't wait for the next time.
Well, great job, you guys. I'm glad Rec Poker is growing. It's wonderful.
Yeah. It feels like it. Well,
yeah.
And if you are listening to the YouTube chat, you got to hear a little harmonica music from Tommy Angelo as we got ourselves ready to go. Tommy's like practically a Wrecking Crew member. Let's just say it, Tommy. You're like, it's almost official. You've been contributing here for a long time.
I think I did come on once or twice just to visit, just to chat.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about straddles, I think, and we did some we talked about you getting a little more comfortable playing out of position. We've been mining for gold up here in the Angelo mine. Yeah. All right. Thanks again, Tommy.
Okay.
I'll look you up next time we're out west. And everyone, go ahead and check out Tommy's website. Send him that email and let him know that you heard him here on the Rec Poker podcast. Maybe he'll agree to come back for a fifth or sixth
I'm sure he
time
will.
or something like that. I'm sure he will. I got a good feeling. about it. Thanks again, Tommy. All right, so I see a bunch of people typing the words food bank into the chat here. While we let that percolate, John Somsky, why don't you talk about some recent home game results, and then we'll give away some prizes. And folks, I would encourage you to stick around till the end of the show for the prizes. That's the last thing I'll say about that. All right, John, what do we got going on?
All right, well, on October 16th, K-Poker wannabe Ron Payton won his 8th daily event or nightly event of the year. Elvis 76, Steve Krebs, got his 3rd nightly event of the year. Duck and Run 99, Michael Savage, won his 2nd nightly event of the year.
Nice. Way to go, Savage.
Uncle Tom's Cabin got his 2nd daily mixed victory of the year. Rick the Good Dog got his 4th international victory.
Killer.
And JTBT Twin Cities, or JB Twin Cities, got her 1st international victory for the year.
Nice.
And Carl 0621 won the daily LPP event for the first time, so he can contact info@rec.poker for his free month at Learn Pro Poker.
Right on. Heard a bunch of great names, some OGs of Rec Poker in that group there. Way to go, JB. I think JB recently featured in a Running Aces tournament as well, if Twitter was telling me the truth. So congratulations, Joanne Bird. Oh, doxed you. Everyone knows who you are now. Thanks, John. I love seeing these folks that get involved with Rec Poker flourishing in the home games. It makes it doesn't surprise me one bit. Okay. So we have all these wonderful people who have typed the words food bank into the YouTube chat. Thank you all for doing that. We got a whole bunch of people in there. That's fantastic. The only disappointment that I have to bring to the table is that we're actually not going to roll a die this week because Tommy Angelo said that everyone who is here in the YouTube chat is going to get a free copy of his book. So this is available on Amazon. You could pay some money for it there. You could pay some money for the audio book. But we're going to give away a free e-copy to everyone here in the YouTube chat. And the way that you can claim your prize is just send an email to info@rec.poker and say that you were here in the YouTube chat tonight, and we'll send you off your e-copy of Tommy's book, Waiting for Strangers, which he was very pleased to be sharing with our group. And I think you're all really going to enjoy that. There's some great stuff in there. And I think I was going to limit this to I don't know. Tommy is such a good guy. He likes spreading this stuff around. I think we should actually, if you're listening to this podcast, this comes out on Friday. This comes out on Friday. What'll be the date? That'll be Friday, October 27th. So if you email me info@rec.poker in the month of October, we're going to send out that book to you. If you're one of those eager beavers that listen to the podcast in the first week that it comes out, send that email in the month of October. You're going to get a free copy of Tommy's book, Waiting for Straighters. And thanks for your support. And thanks for joining us in the YouTube chat. Thanks for listening to the podcast and playing along with us here every week. Just one of the perks of being here in the YouTube chat, you get better access to all the prizes and that kind of thing. And then the chat is going nuts here in the actual Zoom booth as well. Good Lord. I can't take these people anywhere, I swear. All right, so we got some exciting stuff coming up. I have to re-emphasize Council Bluffs, Iowa. The Run Good road trip is right around the corner. We've got events planned all week. It's a Tuesday through Sunday affair. We're going to have study groups and prep sessions every day before the tournament start on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. On Friday, we're going to get off site and play some putt-putt or maybe some bowling, depending on what the weather's like. I think we might have a meetup game on Friday evening. Saturday and Sunday are the main event days there, so there'll be a bunch of stuff going on. Email info@rec.poker if you want to get more involved. If you're anywhere near Iowa, Council Bluffs, Iowa, you're going to want to join this Run Good / RecPoker road trip. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm seeing some comments in the chat here that Tommy really loves readers to send him comments and reactions. He's never too busy. So yeah, so if you do like the book or anything else that he's working on, do just send Tommy an email, because everyone has Tommy's email address now, apparently. Oh God. I don't know how he does it, but I'm sure he's going to be getting a few emails based on this one. Folks, is there anything else that any of the RECing Crew members would like to talk about for events that are coming up over the next little while? It's going to be the end of October. We're going to be in Cleveland for that first weekend in November, doing another Run Good event there. I know not everyone can get to that one. Chip Extractor in the YouTube chat. Yeah, we've got a couple Vegas regulars now. Sasha's down there and Joseph. Rob's just across the border. And we do a couple events there a year. We're going to be back in December for part of that WPT series in the first couple weeks. Steve, if you're interested in getting more involved or meeting up or something, just send that email, boss, info@rec.poker, and see if we can make a plan to get together. I don't see anyone else unmuting. Is there anything else that anyone wants to jump in here with? If you're watching this live and you're a premium member, tonight is the deep dive recording of the seminar that Chris Jones is working on. So there's still time to sign up to grab a seat in that. You can get some feedback and critique on your play from the one and only Dara O'Carney, which I know is a fantastic draw. A RECing Crew member, I might add, Dara O'Carney, who likes to contribute towards our monthly deep dive with Chris Jones. Just two poker peers living their best lives, Chris Jones and Dara O'Carney. Chris loves it when I say it like that. All right, folks, I've dragged us through the garden here long enough. I have to thank our Running Aces hotel, racetrack, and casino. We really couldn't do it without their sponsorship and their support. All these fantastic folks in the YouTube chat. Great to see all these couple new people in there, a couple OGs of poker. Way to go. Eric, Sasha, Keith, Joe, John, Rob, and Chris, and of course, Tommy Angelo. And everyone else, thanks for having a great time here with us on the RecPoker podcast. And we'll see you again next week. All right, everybody, take care.
Drag us through the garden?
It's a thing. That's an expression.